Hello, my name is Vincent Faney. I am the author of Zen and the Art of Resistance Training, a yogic and scientific approach to weight training. This is a 600-page manual with cutting-edge exercise physiology, insights through physics and biomechanics, kinesiology, and cutting-edge mind-body techniques. With this book, started back in 1996 to write. It took about almost 7 years to complete. It's a culmination of 40-some years of experimentation and training where I reached a high level of world-class performance and various rep ranges to body weight of 180. And anyways, I got some people who have donated their pictures because they like what they saw, what they read. Frank Zane normally does not give his picture or lend his name or any credibility to books that he hasn't read and doesn't approve of. And so he approved and sent this picture for me to put in the book, and Dave Draper, former Mr. Universe, sent this picture to put in the book. And since I published the book, many other bodybuilders, powerlifters, strength athletes, and doctors in mind-body field psychology, sports psychology, has lent me their pictures and will be giving me some great kudos. Always want to be all-around athletic and look like Frank Zane. Never want to be real big, although I write about how people can get big. I got pretty muscular at 180 into my 40s. And anyways, if you want to read more about my creds, there's I got records in Powerlifting USA from years ago, all sorts of creds. You can look at the one tape that says my credentials, and so I don't want to have to repeat myself. We got a lot of ground to cover on this today. Okay, so basically I'm going to be covering Chapter 9, and Chapter 9 is speed training. Chapter 29, speed training. And I got to tell you, I got to warn you, the potential dangers for misuse or premature use of speed training. This method will, before embarking, okay? You got to look at the end of this section before embarking on this, because it's potentially very, very dangerous if you use too much speed with weights, okay? So, anyways, on Chapter 29, speed training, we'll talk about velocity, acceleration. And now you see this formula down here. I got it from Wikipedia. What it is power equals work. I mean, this is make like there's a line right here in between here. Okay? So make like there's a line. I'm going to take this out. And because this is a formula. And that's just basically got this from Wikipedia. You can't see the line that's under time. Okay? You can't see, let's see. You can't see that this is basically, this time is under here. You got work divided by time equals force times distance divided by time. And of course this is 1 minute under here. Basically I adapted this formula for powerlifting. So if you look at example, 200 pounds times 1 rep is 200 work pounds units. Okay, when I start adding the stroke, obviously if I lift this weight off my chest, let's say, at arm's length, from my chest to arm's length, I have a long reach. I have an 18-inch stroke. Some people have a 12-inch stroke, and we'll show the comparisons. But just we won't even look at the distance lifted. We'll just simply say 200 pounds. It took 1 second to lift it. Okay, and that's 200 work pounds. Okay, if I did it in 1 second, 1 rep, 200 pounds, 1 rep divided by 1 is 200 work pounds. Okay, so, and let me just bring this page over here to get this in a little more reasonable. Generally, I don't like this thing, but this is one thing that we're gonna need to show you in a format that will be more available for you to see. Okay, so talking about Chapter 9, speed training. This is the thing that I got, work times distance. And this is the first example, 200 pounds. It's 200 work pounds, okay? Now, if I go up to 300 pounds, and I do 1 rep, and I do it in 1 second, divided by 1 second at a time, that's 300 work pounds. 350, 1 rep, 1 second, divided by 1 second, 350 work pounds, and so forth, 400 work pounds. Now, I want to show you 200 pounds. Sometimes, this is one thing I noticed when I started lifting years ago, that people they could do 10 sets of 10. Or 10 reps with 200 or 3, whatever reps you're doing. Some people lift it faster, some slower, and I just started wondering what effect that would have, and I started studying more about it and found out this formula. Now, if I did 200 pounds, 1 rep, and I did it in half a second, 0.5 of a second, that would be the same as this. I would equal what a person was doing 400 pounds in 1 second for. And I would have, let's look at it a different way. For me to equal this at 200 pounds, if I could do 200 pounds for 1 rep in 1 second, and I just don't have the confidence I could ever do 400 pounds, but you know, maybe I think I'll never do 400 pounds, but I want to equal this work pounds, with this load, this type of force. I would have to take that, I would have to double my speed. This is half the weight, so I'd have to double my speed, which means do it in half the time to equal that. Now, if I wanted to do better, I would have to do it in a third of the time. Drop it to, you know, a third of a second, 0.33 of a second. And that would give me about 606.061 work pound units. Now, let's look at all this if it took 2 seconds to complete. Because 2 seconds is a longer interval of time. It's slower. You're doubling the amount of time it takes you to do these above. We're going to double the amount of time it takes for the same 1 rep. We're not going to worry about how long our bench stroke is or a curl stroke or whatever. So 2 seconds to complete. 2 seconds of time. Okay. And that's 201 rep in 2 seconds. It took 2 seconds. Divided by 2 seconds. Now I just did half the amount of work pounds. See that? Half the amount. It's half of that. Each one is half because it took 2 seconds. It took twice as long. So we're comparing apples to apples, and the only thing we're changing is the amount of time that we're looking at these apples or taking care of these apples or eating these apples or whatever you want to talk about. But see, half the amount of time. So we made this slower, okay? Now, in a way, that's not an inferior thing, depending on what you're up to. Like, there's time under tension. We'll talk about that later. But in a sport where you're trying to get as much velocity, as much acceleration, you're trying to get your punches in faster, you're trying to run faster, trying to block against a guy with more speed and force, you want to increase the amount of speed, which means you have to get to the person or hit the person or lift the weight or throw something in half the time or less time. Because you're generally working in gravity is equal for all of us, and you know, so and if you have to deal against the same opponent, dealing apples to apples, and use the opponent that you're usually boxing against, wrestling against, blocking against, tackling, is the same weight and strength, you know, that's a constant. Your body weight's a constant. The distance that you usually carry can be altered somewhat, but basically you want to increase your speed. But in weightlifting, you could alter your intensity by increasing the amount of weight, by the amount of reps, and that's another thing we'll talk about later, by the amount of speed. You know, do we increase our speed? Do we decrease our speed? Okay, see? Now 1 second to complete. Okay? Now this isn't just 1 second to complete, it's 1 second per rep. Let's say now I want to do 200 pounds and do it 3 times. Okay? Now, if I, you know, once 200 times 3 reps is 600. Divided by 3 seconds, it's 1 rep per second. That's still 200 reps. Well, you did it 3 times, so it's not quite, it's a different apple. You're comparing this apple here, 1 second per rep, but that's only 1 rep, to 1 apple here. So basically what you're doing, I'm sorry, one right here. So that's 200, that's 200. But then it's a slightly different apple because you did 3 reps. So you did a total workload of 600 pounds. In the first one, you did 1 rep per 1 second. That's a total workload of 200 pounds. This is a total workload of 600 pounds. But the amount of force per second is 200. And then, of course, total would be 600. Okay? This would be 900 total. Okay? But divided by 3, it's a 300 workload. Hope I'm not confusing you. You see how it goes up. Just wanted to give you an idea how, you know, your time is a factor per rep. Okay? Now, let's say I wanted to do, see how we got 400 pounds here, 3 reps? That's only a 1,200 pound workload, total workload, 3 reps. But divided by 3, it's 400 per rep. Okay? That's what I should have made a notation per rep. And then we have something here that's 200 pounds. I want to show that to equal this, I would have to do 200 pounds to equal this amount of workforce per rep. I would have to do 200 pounds in 1.5 seconds per rep. Now still, that's only, this is 1,200 work pound total. This is 600. Now I would have to do 6 reps, okay, in 1.5 seconds per rep. 6 reps in 1.5 seconds per rep to equal the pounds per rep, work units per rep, and equal the total workload. Okay, so you got to look at how to manipulate things like that. Now, if I want to do better, I would do in 1 second. That would be 600 pounds. If I did four reps. If I want to say, hey, you know, I still have 200 pounds. I want to increase the amount. I want to really go beyond this. Okay, so you do 4 reps. You can't increase. You can't imagine. You just say to yourself, geez, I can't do it in any less seconds, so I'm going to do 1/4 of a second, 1/4 per rep. Divide it 4 reps. You just all you did was add the rep. Up here you have 3 reps per second, right? 3 reps per 1 second, and you're thinking, my gosh, I don't know if I could increase. You know, I'm not going to increase the weight, not going to decrease the weight. I'm going to keep it within the same unit of time, 1 second, but I'm going to try to force 1 extra rep in that 1 second, bringing it down to 4 reps per second, which increases the total workload to 800 pounds and the amount 800 work units. Okay. Now we'll look at the weight times reps, distance and movements. Okay. 200 pounds times 1 rep. If you got a short power lifter guy with like 12-inch stroke, he's moving this 2,400 foot-pounds. It's divided by 1 second. It's 2,400 foot-pounds. Okay, it's 1 second. Okay, person with like my reach will do 3,600 foot-pounds. Same weight, same amount of reps, same amount of time, but I did it at 50% more of a distance. See, 18 inches is 1.5 feet. I did it in 50% more distance in the same amount of time, same weight, same rep, 3,600 foot-pounds comparatively. Now for this guy to get the same amount of foot-pounds, he would have to increase his time or he'd have to increase the weight. So he would have to go up to 300. He would have to do 100 pounds more, okay, in 1 second for 1 rep to equal my foot-pounds, okay? Okay, but then all of a sudden I'm competing against him. He says, look, I equaled your foot-pounds. I went up to 300. I go, well, that's not a problem. I'm going to go to 300 pounds for 1 rep, and I'm going to get 5,400 foot-pounds divided by 1 second now, okay? So then he says, well, heck with that. I'm going to try to go 50 pounds more. But he doesn't quite get there. He doesn't beat me. He increases his foot-pounds, and he's still doing it in 1 second, which is impressive. He's doing more weight, 1 rep, 12 inches, still in 1 second, 4,200 foot-pounds. So I said, the heck with that. I'm going to go to 350, and I did 1 rep. And to my credit, it didn't take me any longer than 1 second, and I did 6,300 foot-pounds. Okay? So remember the last time he went up to 100 pounds more? He increased his weight by 1/3. But unfortunately, now the amount from 300 to 400 is a smaller percentage of weight increase for the total amount of weight. So even though he's more than 300 here, see, I got 300, I got 5,400. He won 100 pounds more again, and yet that's not quite enough foot-pounds. He's doing 100 pounds. He still cannot get 54. And of course, I'm competing with him, and I got 72. Did everything the same, apples to apples. The only difference is my reach is 6 inches. I had to move the weight 6 inches more. And since I can do it in the same amount of time with the same amount of weight in 1 rep, I'm exerting far more muscular force. Okay, so now we go down. He says, okay, let's do something different. 200 pounds. He's going to try to go faster. 1 rep, 12 inches. He does it in 1/2 second. Now, if you remember up here, he did it in 24. He doubled the foot-pounds because he doubled the speed. He did it in 1/2 the time. Okay? And I'm saying, you know, that's okay. I'm going to go and do the same thing. And because I have a greater distance to go, it's more effective. I'm doing faster per distance, doing more miles, if you break it down, more miles per hour per stroke, okay? And of course, this is what he's doing. If he does it in 1/3 of a second, he just barely beats me. He has to if he wants to get me, he has to go just beyond 1/3 of a second to just beat. He slightly beats my foot-pounds. And I'm like, shit, can I do that? Can I do that? And I did it. And I barely got it. And of course, he's pissed because I got more foot-pounds. Now we're going to go and we're talking about like inches, okay? We get not only inches for 1 rep, we're going to talk about multiple reps. And really, in a way, if you look at the positive movement, like if you go to bench press or curl and you go to positive movement, that's 12 inches forward. But sometimes it's just, you know, valid, and you just compare apples to apples, 12 inches forward times 3 reps is 36 inches, 3 feet, or double that, that's 6 feet, okay? Because, and what I mean by 6 feet and why it's double is you're not just going 12 inches forward, you're bringing the weight back down 12 inches, up 12 inches down, you know? So you got to go back and forth, back and forth. So it's just as valid to say you move the weight 6 feet. Move the foot away from you, a foot towards you. Foot away, foot towards. Foot away, foot towards. 6 feet, 3 seconds, or 3 reps. Now, each rep, it took you, on average, 1 second per rep. You divide that, so your overall foot pounds, your 3 reps, remember the total workload, 3 times 300 is 900 pounds workload, but the amount of time that you did it, 1 per second, 3 seconds for 3 reps, 1 per second is 3,600 foot-pounds. And the guy, and for me, it's 18 inches, so I got more feet than I'm moving. I'm moving a lot more feet overall. Okay, as you can see, I'm more of a distance overall. Okay, and you look at the foot-pounds and so forth. And it goes up as you go up in weight. We're competing with each other. And, you know, he's pissed because, generally a guy with short arms is going to have an advantage. He doesn't have to move it as much distance, so it's going to be easier for him to move it in a faster time frame normally. And he could basically, his leverages are better, so he's able to, generally, short guys are able to, with short arms, are able to move more weight because they have better leverages. Shorter distance, better leverages, usually equates greater amount weight lifted and more speed. However, the taller athletes with the longer arms, longer limbs, have more of a disadvantage. They don't have quite the leverages or the mechanical advantages to lift those heavy weights. They have to move a lot faster per inch to hit their target, to reach the same distance. The advantage with a guy with longer limbs is that he's able to do momentum. He has the advantage of momentum, and it really helps to get a snap at the end of a jab or throw a snap for a javelin, okay? So a guy with long limbs, if a guy with long limbs can move as fast, if he can move as much weight or go faster and so forth, he's going to be a more dangerous athlete, quite frankly. But overall, I showed in this one, and I've done this before, at the body weight of 180, I've moved on the bench press 230 pounds for 18 inches each stroke, my 18-inch stroke from chest to full extension, 54 inches per stroke upward, 108 total, times 30 reps, and I've done 30 reps easily in 10 seconds, 30 reps of 230, and that's basically, this is a 12,400, no, I got more than that, okay, it's 124,200 pounds workload, okay? And then when you divide it by 10 seconds, it's actually at 12,420 work units of foot-pounds total, okay? And that's pretty good. So if you look at that, that's on an average of, that's a lot of miles per hour. And of course, if you look at the backward-forward, that's over double. That's about double the miles per hour that you really have an athlete's. So you can see that a person could run fast if they can hit faster with more force. They're going to be a more dangerous athlete. Now we get back into the 1 second and 2 seconds. Some people think you always want to increase the amount of speed, but that's not necessarily true. The amount of speed I'm going to call like as the mean. You know, we have the Celsius and Fahrenheit, with 0 Celsius as being 32 degrees Fahrenheit, I believe, and I would say that I'm going to use 1 second reps as a mean, a 1 second rep. Anything more, takes more times than 1 second, is going to be slow. Anything faster than 1 second is going to be fast. Time under tension, you want to go slower. So the guys who purposely, see, now sometimes you want to purposely go slower. A lot of times you got a guy who's grabbing a weight and he wants to purposely go the 3 seconds. Okay? On one hand, he's going to try to take 300 pounds and purposely go as fast as he can on some exercises. On other exercises, he wants to purposely go longer, more than 1 second. So on one hand, his overall workload output will be diminishing, but if you look at that as the inverse, and the object is to go longer, with the heaviest weights possible, to go slowly down and slowly up, on purpose. And you say now all of a sudden this undesirable number of being smaller because your objective is inverse to the speed, is actually desirable. That's a desirable number now, because you're developing Python type strength, Python strength. Okay, and so like when you're on when you're hitting somebody, if you're up on the mat, you're on your feet, you're tackling and this that, you want to hit them as fast as possible for as long as possible with as much force as possible. Bam, 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 over and over and over and over. Okay, but when you go to the mat and you get into a situation where you can't be hitting and your speed's not there, and you got to constrict the guy, you got to hold the guy, you got to crush the guy, you got to have force. You got to be able to hold that guy. The object is to be able to increase the amount of force or weight that you could do here for a longer amount of time, holding for like long. Okay, let's say you're doing this now. Let's say you could hold a guy in a certain lock for 3 seconds, and you're just exerting this strength, the time under tension. But all of a sudden, you can't increase this anymore, the weight, but you could go slower. So then this workload gets lower. So okay, let's say you go 6 seconds. All of a sudden, this unit becomes 150. If you did this and held him for 6 seconds until he's tapped out or whatever, that's when you want. That's why it's important to go slow sometimes. And going slow helps you to go do better, faster, and vice versa. Anyways, that's all the time we got for now. Just remember this is a very important section to remember, and I will talk to you later. Bye.